All right, welcome everyone to our Tuesday, December 13th, 2022 regular closed session meeting of the EBBMUD Board of Directors. In accordance with Government Code 54953E, this meeting will be conducted by webinar and teleconference only. A physical location has not been provided for this meeting. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
One moment. Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz.
Present.
Director McIntosh. Director Mellon.
Present.
Director Patterson.
Present.
Director Young.
I'm here.
President Lenny.
Here. All right, we're on to public comment, and if members of the public are online and wish to make public comment, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Madam Secretary, do we have any public speakers?
I don't have anybody online for public comment. Ms. Rivera, are you going to make public comment? Okay, so we have somebody here to make public comment?
All right. Each speaker is allotted 3 minutes to speak. However, I have discretion to amend this time. Please refrain from providing personal information, such as addresses or phone numbers, during public comment. If we need this information, we'll have you contact staff. Secretary will track time and inform each speaker of the allotted time has concluded.
Are you ready? Can you adjust this? Because you can't. See how it's tilted for dairy? Just stick it that way. Yeah.
Nice to see you in person.
Yes.
Thank you for your time. I think I can move it over here. There you go. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
All right. We didn't realize it was tilted up for somebody who was a
tall
little
people.
taller. Yes. And your 3 minutes start now.
All right, well, thank you for your time. This morning I spoke at the HR meeting. I did say in the HR meeting that I wanted to say something that was, I thought, confidential, but I think it's in the best interest of the district that I do say it publicly. And it has to do with my concerns about the qualifications of somebody that's a key player in the DIO office. I'm not going to have time to talk about it right now because I only have 3 minutes. I will bring it up at the 1 o'clock meeting. I was told by Derek McDonald I can't tell it to you in confidence because it violates the Brown Act. So I will say it at the 1 o'clock meeting. I know that you're going to be meeting about a few things this morning, and one of them is the Pierce Bland lawsuit. As you know, I've told you that I have a PACER account, which gives me access to federal documents. I'm sorry I couldn't provide all of you the document that I provided Director Coleman, Director McIntosh, and Director Patterson, but it's called the Exhibit 108, and it was provided by EBBMUD to the federal court in support of their motion to dismiss the Bland-Pierce case. I'm just going to read one little section, and this is a response from an employee at the district, an attorney, who's filed a civil rights lawsuit, 2 of them. And before that was filed, a determination was made by EBBMUD, and I'm just going to read a paragraph. I'm going to just pick one out of several paragraphs, and I'm just going to choose determination number 5. Unsubstantiated that Craig unfairly treated minority female employees compared to white male employees. I provided the investigator an extensive list citing the many ways in which Craig had treated me differently than white male attorneys. The determination acknowledges that while investigation revealed certain differences, they were based on business or other discriminatory reasons. Once again, every credibility call and benefit of a doubt was given to Craig to reach this conclusion, when in fact Craig should be held to a higher standard because of his high management position. I'm not going to read anymore. I have the document available on PDF, and now it's public record because I gave it to 3 board members this morning. And I just want to say that this morning I talked about accountability because the district refuses to include that in the strategic plan for the DEI. And of course, it's the district's option to do whatever they want. But for those of us who are suffering under discriminatory actions, bullying. We are shocked, even though we know it's going to happen, we are shocked when these individuals are promoted or are allowed to retire, are given awards, are given big bonuses. And I'm going to continue to do my part in making sure that I bring a level of transparency that the district doesn't. Thank you for your time. I yield.
I have a question for staff. If a member of the public wanted to provide a document that should be classified as confidential, perhaps because it's a personnel record of some sort, and could that person provide it to the general counsel's office for proper classification, for transmittal to the board as in its proper classification?
I'd have to see the document. I think that someone providing you a confidential document does not make it non-confidential. In Ms. Rivera's case, my understanding is you wanted to actually meet with 3 committee members.
Or I could just say it here and everyone can leave. Any way you want to handle it.
Yeah, unfortunately, under the Brown Act, you can't have 3 committee members together to hear something privately from you. That would be a violation of the Brown Act. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not making any assumptions about what's a public record or what can fall within an exception. I'm just
Right.
considering the issue.
I will note that Exhibit 108 is part of a court filing, so it is a public record.
Okay, thank you.
All right, do we have any other speakers online or here?
We have no speakers online.
All right, we'll now convene to discuss closed session agenda items. We're scheduled to return here for our regular meeting at 1:15. All right, thank you everyone for being at our regular business meeting. Welcome. This is the regular business meeting of December 13th, 2022 of the EBBMUD Board of Directors. In accordance with Government Code Section 54953E, this meeting will be conducted by webinar and teleconference only. A physical location has not been provided for this meeting. We will receive reports from this morning's Planning and Legislative Human Resources Committee meetings under item 16. Roll call, please, Madam Secretary.
Director Coleman.
Present.
Director Katz.
Present.
Director McIntosh.
Here.
Director Mellon.
Present.
Director Patterson.
Present.
Director Young.
Here.
President Lenny.
Here. Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we are going to start with California State Assembly member Bauer-Kahan's recognition for Director Mellon's years of service. We will hear from Sean Kumagai, District Director of California State Assembly member Rebecca Bauer-Kahan's office. Sean.
Thank you, Mr. President, for allowing me this opportunity to recognize Director Mellon. I'm Sean Kumagai, District Director for Assemblymember Bauer-Kahan in the 16th Assembly District, and she represents, among other parts, the San Ramon portion of Ward 7. And the Assemblymember regrets not being able to be here today in person to recognize Director Mellon, but on behalf of the Assemblymember, I would like to recognize him for his many years of service to our community. And on behalf of the people of the 16th Assembly District, thank you for stepping up to do this important and often challenging work. You have left an indelible mark on our community, and we are all stronger for your efforts. The Assemblymember feels incredibly lucky to represent the many water and sanitation districts across the 16th Assembly District. And as the chair of the Assembly Committee of Water, Parks, and Wildlife, she knows just how important this crucial work is to ensuring we have reliable, affordable, and safe water for our communities. She looks forward to continuing this important work with the remainder of the EBBMUD board, And she knows, Frank, that you will continue to serve in meaningful ways in your community, and she looks forward to hearing more about your future endeavors. And as a small token of our appreciation, I brought today an Assembly Certificate of Recognition. On a personal note, Frank, as a fellow Navy veteran and fellow cryptologist, I want to say it's been an honor to know you in your professional capacity, but I will certainly continue to cherish our friendship. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you so very much. I do appreciate it and extend my appreciation to the Assembly members.
Thank you, Sean. But wait, that's not all. The board adopted a resolution on November 8th, 2022, acknowledging Director Frank Mellon's for 28 years of dedicated public service in East Bay Mud. Today, we are presenting Director Mellon with a commemorative plaque of resolution. Frank,
Yes,
you get
sir.
the honor of presenting you with a very nice copy of the resolution. I've read it once, so we won't read it again, but
Thank you.
for this.
This is awesome. Thank you. Oops, photo op.
Thank you so much for everything you've done and being a mentor to me as well. Very
Well,
important.
It's been my pleasure to work with you guys. It's been my adventure. And my favorite quote on this sort of thing is the great late Jerry Garcia. What a trip this has been.
So you're wearing Jerry Garcia's shirt today.
You weren't supposed to notice.
Excuse me.
All right. There are no announcements from closed session. We will now hear from General Counsel Derek McDonald regarding the need for a board member, for the board to consider adding an item to the agenda for today's meeting.
Thank you, President Liddy. Yes, it's been brought to my attention that staff would like to add an item to the regular agenda for today's meeting. Specifically, they'd like the board to ratify the general manager's declaration of emergency resulting from the discovery yesterday of significant deterioration of a portion of the district's North Interceptor in Berkeley. Due to the rapidly evolving nature of this situation, the need to present information regarding the North Interceptor deterioration to the board is immediate. Section 54954.2B of the Brown Act provides that the board may discuss an item that has not been previously placed on the board meeting agenda at a regular meeting when the board determines two things. First, that there is a need for immediate action or discussion that cannot reasonably wait for the next regularly scheduled meeting, and second, the need for immediate action or discussion has come to the attention of the district after the agenda for the regular meeting has been posted. Under these circumstances, the board may, by 2/3 of its members, vote to add another item to the December 13th, 2022 board meeting agenda and provide directions to district staff regarding the district's response to the emergency as appropriate. And if the board does vote for this item by 2/3 majority, then the item will be added as the first matter for discussion under the determination and discussion of the agenda today. And so, President Liddy, I just need a motion and to call a motion and second.
I move to add this item to item number 15.
Okay. This item has been moved by Director Katz, seconded by Director Patterson. We'll now take a vote on this. This is to put it on the agenda for today. We need a 2/3 vote. All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm sorry. So just based on previous practice, there were two votes needed, the one to the need for immediate action or discussion that cannot reasonably wait. So that was the first vote, and then the second one is need for immediate action or discussion has come to the attention of the district after the agenda for the regular meeting has been posted. So in the past, they've taken two votes.
I'm not sure why that is, because I think the two findings go hand in hand. So
Okay.
I think a single vote will suffice here.
One vote for both, okay.
Okay, so we've taken care of both items with a one vote.
Excellent.
On to public comment. If members of the public are online and wish to speak on agenda or non-agenda items, please use the raise your hand feature in Zoom. Comments on non-agenda items will be heard now. Comments on agenda items will be heard when the item is up for consideration.
Okay.
Are there any online?
We have one hand online for public comment, and we have one person in the audience. Yvette Rivera, are you speaking on a non-agenda item? Okay,
You can take the online first.
yes. Kelly A., you should be able to unmute your mic.
Thank you. So AMI is an issue at all the water agencies around here. Seems like they have a lot of salespeople out there selling this stuff really hard. And so you're looking at doing a business analysis on this AMI, and I really like it. It's very, very detailed, and you're going deep down into all those, business school analyses of the timing of the cash flows and you boil it down to a 15-year payback period. Well, now if you look at that 15 years, that's like what, about 4 or 5% interest rate. So if you're making a 4 or 5% interest rate payback period on your $180 million investment, I don't understand this idea that you have to raise the rates by 7% to pay for this system. Because if your payback is coming from the system itself and not from your customers' payments to you, your water bills, this is the savings that you're getting out of the AMI equipment, then all you'd have to do would be go out and borrow $180 million on the bond market, pay them the 4 or 5% interest. And of course, you're going to make back the money that you need to make the payments on the bond. You're going to make that from where? From all those, the savings that you're making on the AMI, your payback period thing. And then in the end, after 15 years or 20 years or whatever it is, 15 years, you're going to pay off the system. You're going to pay off the bonds, and you're going to have paid off that cycle of AMI investment. And so then the question becomes, why on God's green earth or in your green budget, why would you need to raise the rates by 7% to pay for the AMI? You already have the money. It pays for itself. I'm not saying that AMI is a good investment. I do agree with many of the misgivings and criticisms and doubts and that your board has expressed. But just on the face of it, the idea of raising rates by 7% would seem to have absolutely no justification. Thank you.
All right, thank you for your comment. Marguerite?
As the chair of the planning committee, where we heard this morning, and I'll be reporting on it later, would encourage the commenter to listen, if he did not already, to the session where some of it's not a one-time only big expenditure. It keeps coming back again. So, and in any case, just we're tune in for the February water supply workshop where this will be discussed further.
All right, do we have another online speaker?
There are no other hands online for public comment. Yvette Rivera, if you're ready. Your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you. I spoke this morning, and I brought documents for the board members. Today, this afternoon, the 4 remaining board members that didn't get the documents, they should have gotten that by now. And it's old documents that I say that basically are the same templates that are being brought up now with the DIO or the DEI strategic plan. In these documents, it talks about the same internship programs, and this is in 2006, and the strategic plan, I think, it's 2003. The document that was the most important document I gave this morning was the one that says affirmative action and equal opportunity, because it lists a tally of all the complaints that are filed in the district. So for some reason, there was a little bit more transparency before, but the general counsel's office, before Derek McDonald was in, the general counsel's office decided that maybe it was too much of a liability to show how much racism and discrimination and retaliation happens at the district. Well, I'm providing you that document in hopes that this board directs Mr. Derek Moten to restart the tracking of that and the publication of that. So that's number one. Number two, I provided the district Saji Pierce's opposition to a determination letter. I'm just going to read a line right now. It was submitted by EBBMUD in federal court recently. This is what employees have to do when the district says that they didn't do anything wrong. This is just one line from it. These complaints about Craig's conduct towards Anna show that it wasn't just the frequency or excessive length of Craig's visits to Anna's office that made people uncomfortable, but Craig's creepy tone and attitude towards Anna. Yet the determination focuses solely on the frequency of his visits, and despite acknowledging them as being atypical, goes to great efforts to excuse them. That's just one line of a determination that I have a PDF of. I dropped off a tort complaint before this board meeting, and the first line of that, I'm not even going to read it. It's a public document. I provided a tort complaint to the risk management department, and just to give you an idea of what part of that tort complaint is about, this is a performance appraisal that David Briggs, Tony Montano, David Carlson, and Ed Betancourt ratified. It contains letters of recommendation, or at least citing my excellent service, but none of that mattered. I also provided information that they didn't include in my appraisal. I'm just going to end by saying the Shante Scott case settled for $65,000, despite the district saying that they had a winning case to the public. I still haven't received who said that to the news. Every one of us knows when an agency gets sued, the public face always says, we can't comment because of a lawsuit. But the district is different. They'll use you, Director Linney, to forward a comment that was completely inappropriate about the Saji Pierce and the Bland case.
Your 3 minutes have concluded. If you could wrap up your comments.
I'm going to be asking for all of the money that was spent to fight the Shante Scott case. I'll submit that request today. Thank you for your time. I yield.
All right to that. Do we have any other comments?
We have no other hands for public comment.
Okay, we will now move to our consent calendar, items 1 through 12.
I'd like to pull item 12, please.
Okay,
I'll move 1 to 11.
Can I, hang on a second. Is 12 the,
election.
no, I want to pull, I'm sorry.
Item 10.
Item 10.
So I'll do then 1 through 9 and 11.
All right. Have a motion. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
All right, moved by Director Coleman, seconded by Director Young. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Carries unanimously. We'll go in order. Number 10.
Yeah, I asked for this to be brought up because I just want a little bit more explanation and understanding than what was provided in the BD1 on what our obligations are under this authorization, whether it's pay-go or whether we're basically committing committing this money to a project that we haven't decided
This is on the Los
to go
Vaqueros
for. This is on Los
Reservoir
Vaqueros.
expansion
Yeah,
project.
yeah, sorry.
Yes.
So,
Mike, yeah, if you can provide some more information on the multi-party agreement and the payment.
Sure. This amendment to the multi-party agreement for Los Vaqueros covers a period from the end of this, basically January to June. It's a 6-month extension of the agreement. with an additional $1 million contribution, $1.094 million contribution being East Bay MUD's share. That's to further advance the development of the program, including the JPA, program management, and initiation of the negotiation of agreements with Contra Costa Water and East Bay MUD for our use of our respective facilities. Because it's such a short amendment, a 6-month amendment, the approach is that we'll be invoiced in January, the full amount, the $1,094,000, and that invoice will be due in March. Once we pay that invoice, we would have no recourse if we chose between March and June to pull out of the project. The money would already have been allocated to the program.
Have we spent the 3,358,910,000 minus 1,094 million?
1,094,000.
Have we
Yes.
spent the difference? Has that already been?
Yes, that's been
paid
spent.
and committed.
Yes, through the planning, initial design, and development of the JPA over the last several years.
And how much do we expect to be spending every 6 months until we decide whether to do this or not?
Well, as the project advances and the JPA grows and the design advances, the amounts will increase. So it's
But
a
when
million now.
when do we take our first exit ramp discussion? When do we have that?
So I think that's going to be in about a year's time, approximately the end of 2023.
So we're going to spend
Is what-
another $2 to whatever $1 million more before we decide whether we're doing it or not?
That's probably
At this
accurate,
stage.
yeah.
Okay. And when are we starting to see, when are we going to see the answers that tell us whether this ends up being a good thing for us to do or not?
Well, the board will be briefed on Los Vaqueros again at the long-term water supply workshop in February. But we're in the process and we will be negotiating the agreements that determine the benefits and costs for the district over the course of the next year.
So there are a number of agreements that are still being worked out as we get towards, an ultimate settlement agreement for the project, and the board will be, and committees will be updated on that process. And again, as Mike said, we'll provide another update at the long-term water supply workshop, which is scheduled for February.
Okay. I just want to say, I'll be voting either abstain or no. I haven't decided in the next 30 seconds on this, because I feel like we approved the JPA with a clear understanding that we weren't really all in on this and that there were a lot of outstanding questions. And, I'm concerned that we may be putting ourselves in a in for a penny, in for a pound sort of situation where it's either embarrassing or something else for us to get out. And I don't want to be in that. I want us to be making a rational, good decision about whether this project actually does fit what we need. Not based on whether our other partners or potential partners think ill of us if we back out.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just add to that, just in terms of how we've been communicating. And I can certainly just speak to the general managers meetings where we meet, and I think we've been very honest about the risks of participation and that there are a number of issues that have to be worked out before we participate. So I wouldn't characterize at least the general managers meeting as we're all in this together and there'd be any embarrassment if we found out there was a problem. We've been very clear on, this, if it works out, has the potential, and we get all the grant money. We're talking about $600 per acre foot for the supply that we can store. But there are issues. There are
We don't know what the supply is.
Yeah, so there are issues exactly. Where are we getting our supply? How do our facility use charges get figured out? Are we part of the backstop agreement? There are a lot of things that need to be worked out between now and then. And I think we've been very clear that we have to work through the issues, but we've also been very clear that if all these issues get worked out, at $600 an acre foot, this is a very good project, from a water supply standpoint. But I don't think anybody has been communicating that there aren't huge challenges ahead of us to get to that point.
Andy?
I can appreciate the need to expend resources on planning and the preliminary pre-construction work before we can make a final decision. That's why we're not investing the tens of millions of dollars that it would take to, if not more, to construct the project, all at once. We need to know the answers to those questions. What I'm not clear on, just in this report, which is the normal, the memo in this agenda item is the normal degree of detail that we typically receive for things that we don't have questions about, but I would like to double check what the work plan is in this particular funding allocation, along the lines of the questions that Director Young raised and that General Manager Chan raised. What's the scope of work for this phase of planning and pre-construction?
Right, so it's funding the administration of the JPA, including its new executive officer. It's a procurement of a program management team, as well as some of the administrative functions, banking services, insurance, et cetera. It is developing, as I mentioned, the facility usage agreements, negotiating the terms with East Bay Mud and Contra Costa for the use of our facilities. And then it is further advancing an application to get a grant funding or loan funding through federal opportunities there.
Okay. Is there to me that does seem like it's more about sustaining the organization than it is about studying these issues of concern to the district, and I can see myself going along with this for another round, but I am interested in when in the schedule we will actually study the planning issues that relate to the usefulness of the water supply to the district.
Yeah, I think we'll bring forward more clarity around what are the outstanding issues for the district at the February workshop.
Okay, and when will the next request for funding be after this one?
I anticipate that since this agreement goes through June, that sometime around May or June, we're going to be asked to participate in the next round of funding, either in a new agreement that goes directly through the JPA, instead of this version which goes through Contra Costa Water, or one more iteration of the Contra Costa Water multi-party agreement, and then eventually a JPA agreement.
Okay. Thank you for the answer to those questions. I think what I'd like to understand by the time we get to that water supply workshop is what answers we already have and what the plan is to actually have adequate studies to evaluate the major investment, and I would appreciate for our staff to support our directors who sit on that JPA to be able to help the JPA get to those answers as a priority.
Okay.
And I'll be voting for the motion, but those are I share some of the concerns that Director Young raised in concept.
All right, any further questions, discussions on this item?
I'll move it.
All right, moved by Director Coleman,
I'll second it.
seconded by Director Mellon. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
One.
All right. Carries on 6 to 0 to 1. One abstention. All right, we'll move on to item 12. This is a resolution declaring the results of the election held on November 8th for directors in wards 3, 7, and affirming the appointment of directors in wards 2 and 4 of the East Bay Municipal Utility District. Frank?
Well, I asked that this be pulled because while it was on the consent calendar, I think it merits a little bit more attention than that, but a formal vote. I want to start off with congratulating Directors Coleman and Katz on their hard-fought campaigns where they made it straight to the target without a whole lot of work, and good for you guys. A good 4 years for you. Marguerite, exceptional job of running for office, but more importantly, having you about for another 4 years, and I hope you'll stay with the retirement board because you bring so much to the retirement board. And then to April Chan, congratulations. You can see by the votes that it was not an easy ride for her, but she ran that race, and you know she's going to be sitting here, and she will be, while Danny Wan was the first Asian American on this panel, she'll be the first Asian American woman to be sitting in this seat. And given what our population is, I think it's remarkable that we've taken this far to get to our 100th year before we have the first Asian American woman on the board. So I'm congratulating all of you. And with that, I'm also obviously getting ready to head out the door. So I would move the item, and with my heartiest congratulations to all concerned.
Second. All right, we have a motion by Director Mellon, seconded by Director Patterson for this matter.
Could we roll call vote it, please?
We can roll call vote it. Do we have any speakers for it?
We have one hand for public comment.
All right.
Kelly A., you should
I
be
have a
able.
comment on the Los Vaqueros Joint Powers Authority, and I'm willing to wait to make it, but I had my hand up.
Okay, you know what? Kelly A., I did not see your hand for that item when they voted on it. So do you want to speak on the Los Vaqueros item now?
Yes, go ahead. I'll proceed. So just to support what Director Young was saying, this thing looks very, very, very fishy on paper. The business case doesn't pencil out at all. The idea of a $600 an acre foot as a supply cost, well, that might be a supply cost, but before you can get to the supply, you have to pay your way into the club. You have to buy the storage. You have to pay down the 100,000 acre feet that were built in 1997, the 60,000 acre feet that were built in 2012. All of the overheads that the water district over there, Contra Costa Water District, decides to throw into this project. You have to pay them back for all the historical expenditures. And then when you buy the next 115,000 acre feet over the next 8 years or whatever it is, or 6 years, for about $1 billion, that's going to be what, about $8,500 an acre foot? So that's a lot higher number than the $600 for the supply cost. That's your storage cost, right? It's an acre foot of storage, and it's not an acre foot of supply. $8,000 an acre foot for storage, which is an incredibly expensive storage project. So there's the only way that this project could pencil out to these business people like Director Young would be if you had pipelines and things that you really need. And this district doesn't need any more storage. It needs pipelines. So maybe it is worth it, but until you can, present a business case for where are the pipelines and how they're going to help you and all of the operational benefits of having hubs and transfers and pipelines. This thing is a very expensive storage project. Thanks.
All right, thank you for your comment. Do we have any other hands?
There are no other hands for public comment.
May I ask, do we need to revote based on whether the hand was up or not before the vote?
I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
We are on the
I
vote.
mean, actually, interestingly, I wonder if someone were to feel like a piece of information that came in like that afterwards felt like that was going to compel them to change their vote, that might be a reason to hold a revote. But that's in theory.
I don't see that as a reason to hold a revote. I mean, there was a motion.
I don't, in this case.
Not
but-
unless a board member asks for it.
Right,
Had you commented between the motion and the vote, then that wouldn't call for revotes.
right. All right, so we were on item 12. We have a motion and a second and a request for a roll call vote. So let's go ahead with that.
Director Coleman,
Yes.
Director Katz,
Yes.
Director McIntosh,
Yes.
Director Mellon,
Yes.
Director Patterson,
Yes.
Director Young,
Yes.
President Lenny.
Yes. All right, carries unanimously. Congratulations.
Congratulations.
We'll now move to determination, the discussion. If anyone is online who wishes to comment on item 13 to 15, please raise your hand when that item is up for discussion. And when prompted, state your name and affiliation if applicable. We're on to our added agenda item, which is to ratify the general manager's declaration of a district emergency. We have a presentation for that.
Yes, so yesterday we were alerted about some significant corrosion on the north interceptor near Interstate 80 around University Avenue and 2nd Street. This section of pipe needs immediate repair. As a result, I declared a district emergency yesterday in consultation with President Linney to expedite the repair of the interceptor. Before you is a resolution to ratify the emergency declaration and authorize expenditures needed to respond to the emergency. We have Senior Civil Engineer Matt Heft to provide some background on the failure and the plan moving forward.
Good afternoon, President Linney, members of the board. Thank you for your time this afternoon. My name is Matt Heft. I'm in the wastewater planning section of the wastewater department, and today I have the unfortunate responsibility to update you on some more bad news about our interceptor system, this time on the north interceptor. So I'll go through real quick the incident that occurred only yesterday morning, and we'll talk about what we have for options to repair this condition and our next steps. So to orient you, here's our service area on the left. This is on the north interceptor at the University I-80 interchange in Berkeley. So we have, in this section of the north interceptor, we have a 66-inch interceptor. And we had a construction inspector enter the manhole at this location yesterday morning to discover a really poor condition, near failure in the pipe wall. So here's an overhead view of the interchange and the location relative to that interchange. So here's manhole N20 on the north interceptor. You can see it comes straight down 2nd Street and then makes a curve towards the highway through some businesses in this area. And so we entered the manhole here and proceeded to inspect. So here's kind of a cartoony side view of the underground area here. So manhole N20 is where he entered, came down. To kind of give you some context here, there's a City of Berkeley sewer that connects to this manhole, has a constant flow into the manhole, and we have 2 siphons upstream of this location where the diameter next down to 2 30-inch pipes, and that just creates a different flow condition here, so that's kind of important context. But just downstream of the manhole is this deteriorated area, which I will show in the coming photos. So here's the photo is taken from the manhole, at the bottom of the manhole, looking downstream, and it's kind of hard to tell what you're looking at here, but this darker brown area is the area of most deterioration. And so we had done previous inspections with CCTV rovers, but the footage we received from that was just not able to determine with any certainty what was happening in this location. So we needed a manned entry to go there and physically observe it. So that's why we did this inspection yesterday. And so here's a close-up of that brown area, and you can see a few things that should be brought to your attention. These kind of ribbed-looking features are corroded rebar. And then you can kind of see the shininess here in the brown area. That's water kind of trickling down the wall of the pipe. And I would just, in particular in this location, that's kind of orangey brown, which I'm going to show you in the next picture. Our inspector looked more closely at that brown area and poked gently with his finger and made a hole straight through the wall of the pipe. And so this more brown area is groundwater and soil actually kind of starting to trickle in through that hole. So you can see it was impossible to tell without physically examining it that this was the case. And so now we're standing at that location but looking downstream further, so you can see there's still a lot of evidence of corrosion on the east, like left wall here.
And downstream means towards the main treatment plant?
Exactly, yeah, like as the flow is going that direction towards the plant. So what's unique about this situation, very unique, in fact, all who have been described this situation, all the engineers, I don't think has ever seen this. The worst corrosion is on the wall, the side wall of the pipe. Almost universally, the worst condition is usually at the top of the pipe, or the crown as we call it. And you can kind of tell even from this picture, though it's blurry, the condition of the pipe on the crown and over to the opposite side wall is actually really good. There's not, and I'll show another picture, I think. There's no exposed aggregate, which is kind of the first sign that corrosion's happening. So we don't know yet what particularly caused this, although just observing the flow kind of moving around in the pipe, it seems to have a little particular kind of eddy towards this side of the pipe. But it's at this point, it's a bit speculative why it's like this. So we're still exploring that. But,
It's usually the gas, isn't it, that causes the corrosion as opposed to the liquid itself.
Exactly. I mean, that's generally like the way you see diagrams of this all the time. It just the gas, the H2S, gets released from the sewer. It kind of through a combination of the biofilm on the wall of the pipe creates the sulfuric acid,
Right.
and that causes the deterioration of the concrete. And it seems to almost universally happen at the crown of the pipe. So we're still kind of trying to understand why this is the case at this pipe. I mean, there is, because of the kind of turbulence of this eddy on the side, there could be more concentrated release of gases in the location. I mean, it's, again, a bit speculative. And here's just a closer look at the opposite side of the pipe. You can kind of see, I mean, it's not clean, obviously, but it's not as deteriorated. It's kind of a smooth wall. There's maybe some evidence, these little specks here, that could be aggregate, but no evidence of rebar or anything exposed. So just it's a very unusual set of circumstances. So what our options are for repairing this? So if you recall our incident at the Coliseum where we had an actual sinkhole, we repaired it by putting this concrete cap. This is obviously a kind of cartoony version of it, but the pipe in this location on the North Interceptor is very similar. It has a concrete saddle kind of as the foundation of the pipe, and so we could install first kind of a crown on top of it. We have to consider the fact that it's on the wall of the pipe this time and make sure we're covering and getting a good, solid kind of connection to the remaining pipe. And then we would cap that off with a concrete pipe and backfill. So this is just kind of a side view of that same kind of option. We'd have to excavate down to the pipe. It's about 7 feet deep at this location. It's a temporary repair. We wouldn't be necessarily fixing all of that corrosion that you saw downstream, so we'd have to come back and do further rehab. And it's not watertight, which is important because, of our I&I issues and potential for other kind of deterioration of the pipe issues. The other option is a slip line, which we've been employing in a couple other locations. And similar kind of excavation where we would use that excavation to insert segments of pipe and push that through, and those segments would provide the structural support that we lose because of the deterioration of the pipe. But it is important to state, because it's so early, we just discovered this yesterday, we don't even know if this is a suitable solution in this case because there could be existing utilities. We don't actually have this situation diagrammed here. The next manhole down is actually past those curves I showed, so it makes it a little more challenging for a slip lining project. You want to have, straight length of pipe if you can. There's other options like a cast in place CIPP liner, but that might not work in this case. And we're also exploring kind of more temporary repairs to kind of get us more like a kind of, figuratively a Band-Aid that would get us through to do a more thorough rehab. But it's very challenging this time of year with an active sewer. So we're working through all the options, whatever we can. So our next steps are to brainstorm those best repair methods, including the quote Band-Aid type. And we've already engaged with some contractors who specialize in this. We're working with some now that are very, very experienced in these areas and have lots of good ideas. We're coordinating with the city of Berkeley and with Caltrans because I didn't point out, but there
No
is an
text
exit
station.
ramp that comes it exits right at 2nd Street, right next to this manhole, so we'll have to make sure we're coordinating traffic control with them. And then hopefully ASAP will be entering into a contract with an available contractor and beginning work to get this fixed. That's all I've got. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to take them.
Any questions? Yeah, John.
Thank you for the presentation. Clearly, the work needs to be done. Can't wait on it. So the resolution says anything above 500,000. Do we know roughly what it may cost? And I mean, in the secondary question, and going back to what happened to the Oakland Coliseum site, how's this going to impact the rates for those who are the sewer side of the house?
I can answer your first question. If it's a similar repair to what we did at the Coliseum, it's between $500,000 and $1 million. The rates, I mean, as far as a percentage of our capital budget, it's about, let's see, that's about.
Yeah,
make
so,
sure I get this right.
yes, so I would just say that the work on the interceptors is something that's being discussed and we proposed and shared with the board at the first budget workshop, which is the second meeting in January. Also, given the fact that we understand the condition, that some of that work needs to be accelerated. So that's going to be built into the budget as we bring to the board.
And Stige Sanitary feeds into here, so do they help provide any funding for this, or is that all on our back?
This would be paid for by East Bay MUD
Strictly.
revenue.
This is Stige is Kensington and El Cerrito.
Stige feeds there, going to the Interceptor. That's what I was wondering. Have we, since a lot of this is in Andy or Marguerite's area, well, I guess it goes all the way down to Oakland Coliseum, have you met, or are we meeting with the cities, local jurisdictions, to talk to them about what's going on so they aren't maybe too surprised in terms of upcoming things that may arise that we don't even know about, and what that may mean to them, both from standpoint of traffic, private property, and cost and rates?
On this particular project, what
No, not on this one, but just in general. Looking at this, what happened at the Coliseum, and who knows what may be, you may be back in 6 months with another problem that we need to address as well.
Well, we're coordinating them closely on all of our active projects, and from a broader perspective, I think we'd have to talk about the best way of going about that.
Well, hopefully, I see Kelly here and with Clifford, that maybe some game plan is put into place. So, I mean, we don't know what may happen in the future, clearly, but there'll be other issues since it's old pipes and interceptors, and the local governments that these go through should be aware that there may be possibly disruptions down the road as we try and maintain an old piping system.
Yeah, I'll discuss that with staff.
Okay.
Two questions. What's the length of the deteriorated sewer
Yeah, it's,
or interceptors?
it's about 25 to 40 feet, depending, like, we don't have a precise measurement of when, like, the worst corrosion ends, but that's to the actual location I was highlighting, that's about 8 feet from the manhole, so maybe 10 to 30 feet beyond that.
Okay, and then what I recall when we were having a more general discussion about this problem within the interceptor system was that we thought that the north interceptor was, probably pretty much okay, or was in much better condition. And so this obviously raises a bit of a flag or an alert of, how many other, clearly we did a manual inspection because we didn't see what we needed to see on the, the camera to assess, but how many other spots are we in a similar condition where we don't really know?
So the kind of lead up to this was we had our internal staff do, we call them GoPro inspections, but it's a high resolution camera. We put it on a stick and we open up a manhole and we stick it in there, because 9 times out of 10 the worst corrosion is happening by manholes, so we can get a good assessment of that. So we did inspections like that at the manholes upstream of manhole N20, then 19, 18, 17, and 16. And the condition of that pipe was very good, to the point of we would set that on the back burner and come back to it and inspect it later. And we also did inspections downstream of this location. This particular location is a bit hard to access or hard to safely set up inspection because of the exit ramp and the fact that it's right in 2nd Street. So this was actually last on our list in our inspections this summer, but we had done inspections downstream as well. And similarly, immediately downstream of the image I showed, the condition of the pipe is relatively good, something we could wait and come back to inspect later. So, and like, given the uniqueness of this particular, like how the corrosion is manifesting, it caught us by surprise, no doubt. We were expecting good news when we went in here, and unfortunately that wasn't the case.
So it seems like part of it's this, compression wave as a kayaker, a term it seems like the most sense to use, that's coming from the result of this 30-inch pipe being diverted into two 30 or 60-inch, 66 to 30, and that's creating, some kind of turbulence that's then, making that side of the wall, react the way that it is. So are you also looking at, is there a more permanent engineering, a project that causes that not to be the case, that works better for the flow of sewage into the interceptor system?
Yes, I think, and obviously it's a combination of what you described plus the fact that another city sewer is emptying into the manhole there, because that's what you're probably remembering. The other locations we have these unusual, like kind of large flows causing lots of turbulence, and it results in lots of corrosion. And that's an idea we'll have to engage with our tributary agencies, the City of Oakland, City of Berkeley, on redesigning these connections to minimize corrosion, because I think they were designed in a past that considered different things, less concentrated wastewater, and so these kind of splashing, turbulent entries into our system cause more effect now. That's what we...
And they didn't know what they didn't
observing.
know,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, thank you.
I'm interested in a little bit more information, like what Marguerite was referring to around the inspection program that the inspector was implementing when we discovered this just yesterday. So what's the goal of that program, and how did we get so fortunate to find this in that program?
Yes. So we have a capital project, the Interceptor Master Plan Update, that was scheduled to begin in July of 2022. But we actually, because of the sinkholes we had earlier on the South Interceptor, we accelerated the inspection portion of that work to start in April and May. And so since May, we've been going through a systematic inspection program of our interceptor system, focusing on the highest risk segments of the system. And this was the last of that round of inspections that we completed. And as I was describing, we had, in terms of what our risk assessment was, we thought this would be good news when we inspected it. Unfortunately, that wasn't the case. So that was why it is the last of that batch. But now we're continuing to complete the Interceptor Master Plan Update, and one big part is to develop an inspection plan that charts out the next few years through 10 years from now to re-inspect all other non-rehabbed high-risk areas so that we can capture, as it deteriorates, before it deteriorates to a point like this. And so that inspection plan is being established now, and will begin the next round of inspections next dry weather season.
Okay, thank you. I look forward to hearing more about that and how that comprehensive program is going. How old is this particular pipe or interceptor?
About 70 years. Pretty much all of our interceptor pipes are from the 1950, 1951 era.
How quick will we be conducting at least the temporary repair
I can't give you an estimate of schedule yet. We met this morning. We have to first get a contractor on board and work through a schedule with them. I mean, clearly ASAP, but what specifically that will be depends on who we can get and when they'll be available.
The memo identifies some extent of risk of a sinkhole materializing. And, we saw that just happen, very suddenly at the Coliseum. I think that the amount of infrastructure here, particularly the Highway 80 overpass and the interchange, create a lot of risk for the event of a sinkhole. I'm wondering, the memo doesn't give us the extent of the risk, but I would like us to consider how much that extent is and what kind of monitoring or warning to our neighboring, infrastructure, asset owners and operators we need to be providing and communicating about.
You're absolutely right, and we agree. This morning when we met talking about the path forward on this, that was one of our main concerns, is we've already contacted the city of Berkeley. We have a community affairs person working on that to talk to the businesses in the area, so we'll have establish a plan very soon about making sure everyone's.
Yeah, I saw that sort of to the extent that we would be coordinating about traffic control, and obviously that's what we need to do to conduct the repair. But in the next 24 to 72 hours, do they need to know that the condition of the pipe could create a sinkhole risk? And I don't want to substitute my judgment for the engineers who have evaluated this, but if we do have a risk, I think it's better to provide an accurate assessment rather than not.
Yeah, and we think that the situation is it's certainly an emergency. That's what we're asking for, and so we are sharing as much information as we can to make sure that everyone is aware of the situation.
Okay, and it wouldn't necessarily, my suggestion isn't necessarily, one that would result in a recommendation of closure of an asset, but maybe monitoring is appropriate.
Exactly.
And at minimum notification of possibility.
Yes, that's a great point. We are going to be monitoring it daily to make sure that if there's any sign of a sinkhole. Because that's the one, I guess, good news portion of this. We caught it before there was really a sinkhole at all, so that's good news.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments? All right, thank you, Matt. Do we have a motion for this?
I'll make a motion.
Second.
Thank you very much. Moved by Director Mellon, second by Director McIntosh. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Fix it quick.
Thank you, Matt. So next is a resolution to end the district emergency that we declared back in March 2020 in response to the worldwide COVID pandemic. We have Dave Briggs here, Director of Operations and Maintenance, to provide a brief update prior to the board considering this resolution.
Okay, thank you, Clifford. Good afternoon, President Linney, members of the board. All right, so for your consideration and prior to it, just wanted to review the full arc of the pandemic for almost 3 years now. The virus started circulating in North America in almost 3 years ago in early 2020. We declared our own emergency in March of 2020. That followed the state's emergency, and just about every county, I think at that point, had already declared an emergency in California. During the spring, April, May of 2020, that was really the most strict shelter-in-place period we had. At that time, for about 6 weeks, we were really running the district with a skeleton crew, just enough people to keep the place running, the water flowing and the pipes repaired. Everybody else was sent home. Those that could telework could. We launched the emergency telework program around that time. Later that first year, between board meetings, so between the December and the January board meeting, we started to experience the first real surge of the pandemic, and we had to quickly bring on 2 contractors to support us with contact tracing, testing, and case management. So we did that, and then later, using our emergency authority, and then later brought those contracts to the board for ratification and approval. During that first winter, we launched a testing program, which was vital in keeping this place running. At that time, it was very difficult to get a test, and luckily we had planned ahead and procured enough test kits to keep a testing program going. I think that was a major factor in not only keeping this place running, but also keeping our employees safe. February 21, the first employee at EBBMUD was vaccinated. Later that year, in the summer of 21, with a vaccination rate of probably 65%, we implemented the vaccination mandate. And several months after that, the vaccination rate at the district was probably 92, 93, 94% following that mandate. The second winter, we had the Omicron variant. We launched another testing program again, which was very important. After the Omicron variant abated a bit in the late winter of 22, we started bringing staff back to work, so pulling back the emergency telework so that employees were coming to work 1 to 2 days a week. Last summer, summer 2022, with the subvariants of Omicron beginning to relax a bit, we correspondingly took a step back on the masking requirement outdoors and suspended our testing regimen for employees. In the fall of 2022, the governor announced his intent to end the state's emergency on February 28th, 23, and the signal there was that the state is moving forward with its characterization that this is a manageable but urgent health matter. It is no longer a public health emergency in the state's opinion. So the action before you is to rescind our own emergency declaration. But prior to getting to that, since this has come up many times from the board as well as employees and union representation, what are we monitoring, and if there's an aspect of our transition plan that we need to revisit if conditions get much worse, what are the factors that go into that? So shown here on the slide are 6 indicators. Some of them are leading, some of them are lagging. These are all relevant. We don't have numerical thresholds for each one. I know Clifford agrees that it's very important that we give ourselves flexibility to interpret all this very, very complicated data. For example, if everything is trending downward, we may have certain elevated levels, but if everything is trending downward, we want to retain that ability to pass judgment on the situation. So we don't have numerical thresholds, but these are things that we monitor every day with the goal of keeping employees safe and keeping the workplace safe. That is the end result, and that's what we think about every day when we look at this data. But this is the basis for our decision making, and we wanted to share that with you. So just looking at some data related to these indicators, the upper left is the positivity rate per 100,000 in our counties. That's trending up, but as we know, this is a massive undercount based on home kits. The positivity rate in Alameda County is in the upper right. That is elevated, indicating that we have a lot of virus circulating in the community. This is not a surprise. There wasn't a single epidemiologist that was going on record several months ago saying that we would not have a surge. So a surge in the winter was reasonable to foresee. The district's data is shown below. We are at 1,115 at this point, about 3 or 4 a day. So that's been a relatively steady rate for probably a couple of months now. Certainly beginning in late October and throughout November, we've had about 3 or 4 a day. And then this you may or may not have seen before. This is COVID concentration in wastewater at SD1 and also Central Sands data. So without question, there is elevated COVID in the community. But going back to those indicators, you're looking for 2 things when you're looking at this data. You're looking at the prevalence of the virus in the community, how much is out there, and you're also looking at how virulent it is. Those are the 2 key factors that the CDC uses to characterize whether or not safety protocols need to be ratcheted up or down. We do the same thing. So there's definitely a lot of virus in the community, but based on morbidity rates, based on hospital capacity and strain, I don't see a need right now to change course, but certainly we are monitoring this every day. And as part of your consideration to close out the COVID emergency, just wanted to share the cost to date. And the top one there, 18.9 million, is associated with employee leave for every reason: isolation, quarantine,
vaccination. So this is a combination of the state mandated, the federal mandated, the district's own paid leave, other types of leave for COVID. We have 10 million in COVID administration or running the emergency operations team. These are essentially labor costs that we would have paid anyway, so this is not necessarily out of pocket. It's basically lost productivity. The last three on the slide are out of pocket costs. So $3.5 million or so with out of pocket costs for a myriad of things, contact tracing, case management. So those are the contractors that we hired to assist us with all this management over the past two and a half years, PPE, workspace modifications, and test kits, as well as some staff augmentation to help us manage our caseload. So the out-of-pocket costs are much, much smaller. So the next steps, beyond consideration of rescinding the district's emergency, you can see that we have the transition plan outlined here on slide 8. This has been shared with you before, as well as employees through a variety of meetings and conversations. This would be the last virtual board meeting. If we carry through with the transition plan, the public would have access to our buildings beginning in January. We would transition employees off of the emergency telework program onto a long-term permanent telework program beginning in the middle of January. Face coverings would remain a requirement indoors through the month of January. And as I mentioned, we're monitoring everything very, very closely. And if we do need to pivot or adjust, we will, and we'll keep you well informed if anything changes. Thank you.
Questions, John?
David, thank you for the report. On the virtual meetings, it's been helpful to the public who can't get here to be able to call in and speak in public comment. So we're not going to have that, correct?
No, that will continue.
Oh, I'm sorry, I misread it then.
So the part that would end would be that the district would disclose a physical location for your board meetings.
Got it, okay.
But yeah, Risha and Clifford have worked out so the telephonic option will always be an option
Okay.
for the public.
Fantastic. And is there, I mean, I hope this is all over with. I don't think it is. I mean, it seems to be around, seems to be climbing, and we'll see what happens after the holidays in December. Is there one thing that would make you say, oh my God, the January 9th meeting is not a good time to be doing this for our employees, for the public, and everything else?
I could give you my personal opinion. Based on what I've seen, Director Coleman, with the virus that's presently circulating in our community right now, I am not that worried. I would worry if there was a new variant that had hypertransmissivity and was supremely virulent and that we had no room in the ICU. That would maybe give me pause, but that's not what we're seeing right now.
Thank you.
Other questions, comments?
I'd like to move the item.
All right. All right, motion by Director Young, second by Director Patterson. Any further discussion? All in favor? Oh, Andy.
I support the resolution. I think that the steps that we saw that the district took were important at the time that they were taken, and the emergency declaration isn't particularly serving the district at this time. I think that it is important to retain the things that were productive, like Director Coleman mentioned, having public access to the board meetings through the internet. I think that that's not. We learned about that through the emergency process, but we don't need to do it on an emergency basis. We can simply do it as a good public access measure. Similarly, there are things that we still do need to provide a safe workplace in general, but we don't need to do that on an emergency basis. Those are things where we were acting at various levels of government on an emergency basis, and that's to transition to a point where we're able to have a stable set of measures that ensure optimal conditions day to day. So I do think that we should continue to evaluate what those measures are, the same as we would do for any kind of health and safety measure. I have some reservations about the indoor masking requirement lifting at the end of January. And those are things where I think we are still trying to understand where is all this going. I don't think that needs to be considered on an emergency basis. I think now is the right time to lift the emergency declaration, and those measures can be considered with appropriate public health authorities, with research into industrial hygiene, and discussions with our bargaining units.
Mr. President, I'd like to associate myself with Andy's remarks and indicate that the new normal is going to be looking hard at all circumstances in the surround and taking appropriate action, not as an emergency, but as part of what we better get used to. And I want to make sure that we understand by terminating this, we are not turning our backs on our responsibility to the workforce or the public.
All right. Thank you. With that, we will take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously. On to item 14.
Yes, so next is a resolution to support the exoneration of the Port Chicago 50 and to recognize their importance to the civil rights movement. Director Patterson will introduce this resolution.
Yes, it's my honor to introduce this resolution. The resolution calls for the public exoneration of the Port Chicago 50 and recognizes their courage and contributions to the civil rights movement in line with the district's commitment for diversity, equity, and inclusion. In 1944, 320 soldiers and civilians, the vast majority African American men, were killed in a massive explosion at the Port Chicago U.S. Naval Base in Port Chicago, California. The explosion was thought to be the result of unsafe working conditions and practices. After being threatened with harsh disciplinary action, other servicemen returned to their assigned tasks, but 50 of the soldiers, ultimately known as the Port Chicago 50, refused until conditions and practices were improved. They continued their protests and were charged and found guilty of mutiny, an extraordinarily rare charge and one that significantly distorted what had occurred. The repercussions of the Port Chicago disaster compelled a re-evaluation of the role of racial minorities in the military following World War II, a prologue to the broader civil rights movement that changed America and led the Navy to change its practices and initiate the desegregation of its forces beginning in 1946. Since the event nearly 80 years ago, many other entities, including the U.S. House of Representatives, the California Senate, and the East Bay Regional Park District, have joined the call to exonerate the Port Chicago 50. Sustainability Social, by supporting the exoneration of the Port Chicago 50, the district demonstrates to employees, customers, and stakeholders its commitment to DEI, righting the past wrongs, and to the critical role of the East Bay, that the East Bay played in the civil rights movement. And I just like to say one additional thing. Over time, we have seen great change in America. It is the intent of us coming together in unity, standing together, working together, sharing the present in a unified manner that benefits all. And in that spirit, I put forth this resolution.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any further discussion on this? All right, let's go ahead and vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Carries unanimously.
If any of you haven't or didn't see it, the East Bay Times carried the story of there's a $3 million Thurgood Marshall site. That's what Port Chicago is. And that's the money that has been sent to help with the development of it and showing the state's support. Did I give the date?
I think it was Sunday.
It was Sunday, okay. Oh, the 20th, just before Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it was some time ago, but you can get a copy of it. You can order a copy of it.
Thank you, Director Patterson. Thank you, Board. So next, we want to talk to you about our Centennial. Our 100th anniversary is just around the corner. Earlier this year, we did provide the Board an update on our Centennial planning efforts, and today we have Tracy Morales, our public information representative, to share with you the work we've done since the last time we updated the Board.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Board President Linney, members of the Board, and General Manager Shan. It's my pleasure to share with you EBBMUD's 100th anniversary update. And you'll notice that this presentation is different. It is Centennial themed, and it is one of many new assets that will be rolling out in the coming year. In today's presentation, we'll share with you the foundational messages that have anchored our planning, and we'll debut our Centennial logo and tagline, and we'll share with you the new products and events that we have coming in the coming year, as well as partnerships with businesses in the community, updates to the administration building, as well as the timeline and take your questions. In the lead up to the 100th anniversary, we've been busy. More than 100 employees across the district and at all levels have been busy working on committees, participating in stakeholder meetings, providing feedback through surveys on our Centennial plans. We've also been communicating with the public about our history. We held a popular Water Wednesday that focused on untangling EBBMUD's water history that was attended by more than 100 virtual participants and has had more than 500 views online. We've also published reflective historical articles in our customer pipeline, splashes, as well as social media. And to the right, you will see screenshots from EBBMUD's first talking motion picture. This was released in 1938 and was previously a silent film. This and over 30 other films have been unearthed from EBBMUD's archives, and we're excited to share that with the public online and social media. We shared with you earlier this year the foundational messages that would anchor our communications and that are tied to our strategic plan. They're focused on who we are, what we do, and why we do it. And two particular projects that we're busy working on is a video production, a 15-minute video to celebrate our 100th anniversary, as well as a historical flip book that will be digital. And the goals of these is to really anchor these messages in those products and really to tell more of an authentic EBBMUD story than many of us have been aware of. This summer, we embarked on the process of developing a logo and tagline. We worked in conjunction with staff as well as a consultant to assist us and facilitate the process of developing a logo that blends seamlessly with EBBMUD's brand and communicates our strategic themes, as well as providing a forward-looking vision. And we're very excited to share with you EBBMUD's Centennial logo.
Dun, 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 dun.
I needed a drum roll, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you. In this logo, you'll see various elements. The one is in the shape of a pipe, and it's really the vital infrastructure that's holding our system, our water and wastewater system together. You see elements of our watershed, as well as fish to symbolize our environmental stewardship. In the middle, you'll see a busy urban landscape that's focused on serving a community, and it's also a nod to our administration building in Oakland, and all the way to the San Francisco Bay. So this logo tells a story and meets many objectives of our goal to communicate a rich history of serving our community, environmental stewardship, and a commitment to infrastructure investment. Our tagline is flowing into the future, and it really communicates that forward-looking vision. We'll be leveraging this logo in a variety of different ways by placing this logo in select district gear, as well as identifying sustainable giveaways, such as a commemorative poster to highlight the logo and our story, and sharing this logo on our website, as well as visible areas on our watershed, as well as events. And below you'll see how our EBBMUD logo will be tied with our Centennial logo. Our ISD graphics team and public affairs have been busy developing new, robust content for online. We are in the process of developing a microsite that will roll out later this month. This section on our website will have our historical video playlist that I mentioned, as well as we'll have the Centennial video production that we're working on and the historical flip book. Our teams have also developed new content, such as unearthing truck advertisements from the 1950s and 1960s in a digital format. And we'll have virtual swag so the public can celebrate our Centennial by downloading their own virtual meeting backgrounds. And we'll also have information about our 100th events that are in person. A major cornerstone of our Centennial campaign plan is to develop moments where we can engage, educate, and entertain our public. And one of our plans is to develop a community fair, a 100th birthday party to celebrate the partnership with our customers and spotlight EBBMUD programs such as our customer assistance, the diversity of jobs at the district, conservation messages, pollution prevention, and infrastructure renewal. We're also working to conduct in-person water walks to connect our public with where their water comes from. And we are partnering with our water and natural resources staff, as well as the organization Holy H2O, to conduct guided tours of our watershed. And that will roll out at the beginning of next year. And to celebrate the many contributions of our employees and retirees, past and present, we are planning an employee and retiree picnic in July 2023. Earlier this year, we shared with you our plan to partner with the community and businesses that are rooted in the East Bay, and to connect the message of high quality water with high quality products that we can come together through these Centennial partnerships. We've embarked on building partnerships to develop a Centennial beer, as well as a Centennial beer, as well as partner with the local apparel maker Oaklandish to develop a commemorative design for a t-shirt. Both of these products and the partnerships for these products will be structured to benefit a portion of the proceeds will be structured to benefit the water lifeline. And we have done significant outreach to various breweries in our service area, and we're currently undergoing the selection process at this time, and it's a fun committee to be on, if you can imagine, to select EBBMUD's first Centennial beer.
Where's the EBBMUD logo on these things?
So this is just a sample. It's just to provide a mock-up and for you to be able to see just the idea of celebrating the Centennial. But it's certainly just as a sample.
It's fine.
And in the administration building, there are updates that are available now. You can see here in the boardroom, there's new photography on the side, and then right here. And then outside on the second floor, you'll see new lighted panels that showcase new photography, messaging, as well as information to link to EBMUD.com. And we're also working on updating the first floor of the AB lobby. You'll see on the left our current first floor lobby, and our goal will be to really highlight our history, to support and create a space that creates an opportunity for connecting with our community, connecting with our employees, and really just strengthen community relations overall. Starting in December, we'll be working with our consultant, S2 Associates, to develop the design concept, as well as begin the process of fabricating and installing the exhibit in the first floor, with a goal to debut this new exhibit in July 2023. At the bottom, you'll see some of the work that S2 has worked on. They're an exhibit agency that's based in Napa, California, and they've worked on this children's museum as well as a judicial learning center in San Francisco.
Excuse me, this is part of the contract we approved just recently?
Yes, Director Coleman. Well, we have a busy Centennial schedule. Starting in December, we'll be publicly launching the logo, as well as the EBMUD.com microsite later this month. And we'll be busy weaving in the 100th anniversary themes throughout our communications and publications. We'll also, in January, start the water walks, and we'll be doing extensive governmental outreach to commemorate our anniversary with government agencies. In the spring, we'll be releasing the video production. Yes?
Will the water walks be in addition to the usual Raptor thing up on Pardee, as well as the Wildflower Walk?
Yes, it will be in addition to that. And I think one thing I omitted is that while we're going to be providing a schedule of those water walks, we're also going to be extending those water walks past the Centennial. In the spring, we will be releasing our 100th anniversary video, our flip book, and continue the community events both for our employees and the public. We'll launch the commemorative partnership and conduct proactive media outreach. In May, we'll hold the community fair, and we'll unveil our lobby update, as well as hold the employee picnic in July. And to close out, this is a poster from 1964. This graced many trucks along the East Bay, and the message then still rings true today. And I thank you so much for your time, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Question, Marguerite?
Yeah, I mean, I'm very much looking forward to this. I mostly like the logo. I know logos always inspire comments. I do see community reflected, but I don't see people reflected. And I don't see, since most of our customers are live in houses. It feels a little more institutional than really indicative of our customers. But overall, I like it. I love the water walks, and I think it's great that we're partnering with Holy H2O. They've been doing a fantastic program of these around the East Bay, so that's great. And I would like to hear more about the thinking of this community fair can you say more about that, or is it still too early, really, to?
Well, a lot of it is still preliminary, but the goal is to be able to have booths and to have representatives from different areas of the district to be able to speak to the public. Our goal is to have it on a weekend, free to the public, and really be a celebration. That said, we also want it to be very representative of EBBMUD and to feel homegrown. I think, in the coming year, we're going to be assembling committees of employees to help us shape out what this event will look like. We also want to have a family-friendly atmosphere, so to have activities for kids that really connect with water and that message.
Where are we thinking of having it?
So that's still being determined, and that's an important element. We have brainstormed some locations. Ideally, we would like for it to be in Oakland, because that really is the birthplace of EBBMUD. And so there have been some locations that have been considered among the East Bay Regional Parks District.
Okay. And then one last, shoot. Will come back to me. I have another question that I lost in the process.
Frank and then Bill.
Oh, I know what it was.
So what about the Solano Stroll, the Castro Valley Fall Festival? Will you be doing some of that at those usual functions that we participate in?
Yes, Director Mellon. The goal is to be able to weave in our Centennial themes, and as well as incorporate some of the Centennial, logos and messaging, and some of the sustainable giveaways that we'll be handing out at those key events that we regularly participate in.
Because we already do those events. That doesn't really, other than our materials, it doesn't cause any extra cost.
No.
All right, thank you. Bill. And then Andy.
Just say, being an old coach, I like everything in terms of your layout, which proclaims the activity using the banners and concepts of on the frontages of buildings. I even think about Freeport as you pass. One of the things, though, I think, as far as the face of EBBMUD, is those initials. Somehow they stand out in my mind. And that's the link that brings us all together. In this time, we need somebody to be out front. We need somebody who has their house in order on the forefront. And that's what we're striving for. D&I and all the other things that we're doing internally, we really want to give a resounding shout and a resounding picture in this Centennial. I've recognized way back that EBBMUD was a great, great, great contributor to the United States of America. Let's set the tone, and let's not hold back. Let's be proud, and let's be encouraging, and we'll bring other people to the fore, because that's what we need. We're coming out of a pandemic, we're coming out of a recession, we're coming out of all kind of things, and this brings hope to people. So I just want to be on board by saying, let's make this the most important piece afloat that other people can see in other institutions around the Bay Area and key in on it, because they too have things coming up. 100 years, water agency contributed at the top of the heap, the pride, the joy, and all that we have brought to the people that we serve. That's what we want to exemplify in this 100th anniversary. So that's my take on it, and I want to make sure we get it in, because we need something. There's an absence of something pulling us all together. Unification. There's all kind of things that drive us apart. Let's be one of the ones that bring us together. That's my 2 cents.
Thank you, Bill. Andy?
Yeah, my initial reaction is that it looks really good, and I'm happy to provide a little bit of feedback in addition to what you've already prepared. You know, I like the historical blending and into the storytelling. It really helps. I find the value of it is to help the public be aware of how did we enable the development of our city and our region. And so the historical stories that put that into perspective, that put a human face on the people who put this together, what's the same and what's changed in terms of the way society has changed over the last 100 years, and then what is that? What I really see you looking for is what does that mean about where we're going from here? And I think that's the reason why it's worth public money to invest in promoting our Centennial, because of that educational opportunity. It only happens once every 100 years. Although I think other sister agencies have marked multiples of 25 and the like, but 100 is a pretty cool number. The logo is interesting. It's designed to co-brand with the EBMUD logo. I'm not sure if I would really appreciate the 100 all on its own. It just doesn't. It's got I can see the pipes and I can see the water flowing, but it doesn't really. It doesn't co-brand on its own. It really needs the EBMUD logo to co-brand. So visually, that's what I see there. I love the idea of a community fair, but I would. Don't know if it will work. So I don't have a judgment right now, but I think it's important to think it through and check in on what the vision is, and or do we really think we're going to reach the people that we think we're going to do. I think this is the opportunity to think about through the pandemic, we vacated a lot of our community presence, our sponsorships, our involvement in community fairs. We've started to bring that back in this last year. I think this would be the year, as we're developing these materials and opportunities, swag and materials. That would be the opportunity. This would be the opportunity to really make sure that we are staffed up and have coverage for everything that we would like to be at. Those are my thoughts and reactions, and I do like the idea that with our reopening of the lobby, that we would be able to use that as a connected opportunity. Some other opportunities I can think of is we do have there is a substantial attention to natural resources and heritage at the Oakland Museum. And it's been a while since I've been there. I think that they have things that we've designed and provided input to at the museum. We might want to double check that, that we we could provide more updated materials in accordance with the museum's practices. And I also, have I probably watch a little too much PBS than is good for me, but I would like to share that SFPUC has this, I think it's an hour-long program. It might only be 45 minutes, but they have a program that cycles through, and I don't know how they produced it, but it walks through their history, and we get mistaken as a part of their story all too often in the regional media. So we might want to look at the public television as an outlet to. We wouldn't want to be limited to that. I think that you have so much multimedia here, and I would encourage all of what you described in terms of multimedia outlets. Thank you.
Tracy, you guys have done a great job on this. Are we going to be putting this information in our bill inserts? I know we get electronic bill inserts, so that'll be part of it. And are we going back into schools for water conservation for young students?
Yes, absolutely. The ideas are still preliminary.
Okay.
But the goal would be that we're working with water conservation, that, the regular channels that we have, we're finding ways where we can message our Centennial and the themes and the kind of the foundational messages. But there's a lot of ideas, and so that's really exciting. It's such a great opportunity to partner with libraries, to just find new organizations that we haven't partnered with before to really reach youth.
So when the new logo comes out, whether it's what we saw today or not, are we going to start using that in part of our PowerPoint presentations when the first thing comes up when we do a PowerPoint, it's our logo? So are we going to incorporate that in somehow to those activities?
Yes, Dr. Coleman, will be rolling out this new PowerPoint template.
Okay.
So that way, that's really the first message that our audience receives is our celebration and the meaning behind that.
And I know we'll be doing upcountry work on this. Just you're probably well aware, there's some sensitivities. They're less than they were 100 years ago or 50 years ago, even 30 years ago, but there's still some sensitivities. But I think it's important to bring them into the discussion as well.
Are you saying they're still shooting out windows on cars?
No, I don't think. I think they stopped that a little while ago, Frank. But thank you.
It happened when I was
All right, any other comments?
I remembered my other things.
Okay.
I want to just, I do want to piggyback on Andy's, interest in a community fair, but also in the, as a former event planner, you're not giving yourself very much runway for a community fair that would happen in May. I'm a little skeptical without a big draw or something that anchors it beyond, we may care that EBBMUD is 100, but, so I just think it's really important to think about the expenditure of resources and time and energy to do that and how it'll result in turnout and community participation. I just, that's something like this is sort of a year in the planning usually. So I'm just, on the other hand, someplace like the Oakland Museum that already has a natural audience, maybe that's a way to think about, a month-long, exhibit, something where there's already people coming in and you've got the museum kind of coming along with, whenever it might happen, along with some kind of event that happens in their, really pretty wonderful outdoor space. So as a
Thank you so much.
as a thought, you could also think about businesses that use the bay as an anchor of their business and the importance of a clean bay as in the partner realm, and maybe a percentage of their proceeds over a certain amount of time could go to the water lifeline, which I really like that idea. I have other ideas about Oakland businesses that could be partners that depend on clean water, and coffee depends on clean water. And so if is there a 100 blend that Blue Bottle or one of the other Oakland-based coffee roasteries might want to partner with. So just another, couple thoughts there. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Young.
Go ahead, Bill.
Just one natural events that are already going on, that already have a draw in a crowd. Much of the crowd comes from within our district. and we need to plan through their public relation offices. The Warriors, the A's, all of them, we ought to have a night at all of those events, something that it doesn't cost us a whole lot of money. They'd be glad to chip in. We have relationships with them already. We sponsored things and honored them. Those are the kinds of events that we should have a presence at. And pick when they have something big going on, playoffs and all that, we can blend right in with it and tell our story at the same time in a very short period of time.
All right, these are great suggestions. I have to say what Andy said in terms of kind of our messaging also sparked some ideas with me that I think this is much a celebration of our past, but also put it in some context, as he said, to where we're going in the future. It should also be, the next 100 years or something like that. I look back now on the foundational messages that are in the were in the presentation about being dedicated to community, protecting watersheds, investing in employees. I mean, these are kind of the standard messages that we use all the time. I think this is an opportunity for us to talk about, again, in contrast perhaps to some of our primary goals in the past, also our commitment to diversity, equity, inclusion, to increased emphasis on protection of our natural resources and wise use of water, also our commitment to climate change and to dealing with that, and put those also as upfront messages. These are issues that were not part of our foundation and are now part of our foundation, and so having that contrast and that emphasis, I think, are important. All right.
Okay. Thank you very much for all the feedback. Thank you, Tracy. And then attached is the monthly report, and I can answer any questions you may have.
Just one thing, I noticed in page 82, under water storage, it's the same for McCullum and East Bay. It's verbatim, it just was a copy and paste issue, so I'd be curious later just to get the numbers for the East Bay Reservoir. It says as of November 30th and it ends the same way.
I'll take a look. I'll send you an email.
Okay.
All right, we'll now move to reports and direct comments. If anyone online wants to comment on items 16 or 17, please raise your hand when the item is up for discussion. Committee reports, the minutes from the November 22nd Finance and Administration Committee meeting are included in your packet. We'll now receive reports from the morning's Planning and the Legislative Human Resources Committee meetings.
Okay, the Planning Committee met this morning. We had 4 items on our agenda. The first 2 were updates on our 2 major water treatment infrastructure improvement projects, the Orinda upgrade and the USL upgrade, which also with a sideline on the beginnings of the Sobriety water treatment upgrade plan, which will be coming a little later. Both huge projects, very complex, and appreciated the attention that staff is paying to community outreach and involvement. Hopefully we'll be braiding the 100-year theme into some of those, because we hope they'll last us for a good many decades. Next up, we got good news about our Orson Ridge Conservation Bank being endowment to manage it, being fully funded, which means that additional money that we raise to help protect the habitat of the whipsnake and red-legged frog can go to additional watershed land purchases to complete out our watershed protection interests. And finally, we had a presentation on advanced metering or is it advanced or automatic? Advanced metering infrastructure, which we're going to be hearing a lot more about in February, but raised lots of comments and concerns and interest from the members of the committee, and food for our staff to chew on in preparation for the February water supply workshop.
All right, thank you. Director McIntosh?
Yes, the Ledge Human Resources Committee met this morning at 10:15, and all members were present. We had one item on the agenda, and that was the update on our diversity, equity, and inclusion strategic plan. That was our sole item.
All right.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. I see David sitting in the, can you give us, I know you don't have a presentation, a brief synopsis of what happened this weekend for our water standpoint?
We are about 70% of normal locally and 130% of normal upcountry.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I just quickly, we had 4.5 inches upcountry over the weekend, 2.2 inches in the East Bay. Upcountry, 16.28 inches to date, which puts us solidly around median. So just above median. So we're that's where we are through. If we got nothing else for the rest of December, we're at the 45th percentile, so on the wetter side of median.
Yeah, and I noticed we have 59% more in reservoir storage in Pardee and Comanche from a year ago.
Yes, yes, storage is good, and then the water content is very good for this time of year. We have 13 inches of water content.
Great. Any other director comments? Bill, go ahead. Oh, sorry.
First, it's my honor to ask the board to support me in a letter to the family of Paul Silas in Charlotte, North Carolina. Paul Silas was a young man who grew up under my tutelage, similarly to many of the ones that have come through here. He was a basketball coach in the end. He also went to the Hall of Fame. And he was the leading prep in California in the CIF from McClymonds High School. But I knew him when he was just a kid in elementary school. And I have a tribute to my mentor, Dorothy Seal Pitts. And I'm just going to share that back again. Many calls are coming to the house, and I talked to people in Charlotte over the weekend. He died Saturday evening. But the most important thing about Paul is that he came out of and was nurtured by the West Oakland community, which was the DEI of the time. And my mentor, Dorothy Seal Pitts, was at the helm of that. And Paul Silas is a cousin of the Pointer sisters and Fritz Pointer, Dr. Fritz Pointer, Contra Costa College and up, and his brother Aaron, who set records in baseball with Texas for the freshmen that still are on the record book. Patterned his life after me, went into recreation in Portland, and retired as a supervisor. He also was head president of the National Football Officials Group. All of these young people who came out of Oakland at that time, and that's why I'm so high on us and DEI. We taught them about the world outside of Oakland, outside of West Oakland. And they made a step from Oakland into the sky and survived. They didn't come back, but wherever they went, they made life better for people there because they took what they learned under us forward. And that was her dream. I'm going to write a letter and let them know that the EBBMUD family wishes to send this condolences to the Silases, his daughter Paula, and his son Stephen, and his wife Carol. I can't tell you, I get a setback every time these things happen. But having put your hand on people who make a difference in the world, I'm proud and I'm happy. And I just wanted to share that. These are tears of joy. Tears of joy. He had a good life. And he did good for people. And he'll be remembered. NBA and everybody else remembers him. Russell brought him with him for 2 gold rings with Boston. And he won 2 other gold rings. Seattle, he played with Phoenix. Everywhere he went, he put his name on the brand. This is to be remembered. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill.
That's Paul. That's me.
Bright eyes, oh, wow.
Yeah, it goes
That is
way
you.
back.
Yeah.
Any other director comments?
That's Paul. He was a kid. That's me.
Anything I said?
This is the reformer story. That's me.
Is this by
In
where,
West Oakland.
is this by where the park is now?
Yeah.
This is the house in the park.
All right. So I do want to give a final recognition to Frank for our last meeting with you.
I think enough's been said, and I thank everybody for the courtesies extended.
All right. Thank you, Bill. All right, thank you, Frank. All right. Our next board meeting then is scheduled. The one scheduled for December 27th has been canceled in observance of the Christmas holidays, and our next regular meeting of the board will be held on Tuesday, January 10th, 2023 at 1:15 p.m. This meeting is now adjourned.